everyone. Play a little music for you until I get set up. How are you guys doing? The sun will cool me down. I did come from Hawaii, so yes, I got some sun. Cool me down. Hi, Brooke. Thanks for joining. We'll get started here in just a few seconds. How are you doing? Welcome. I think this is your first time. This is a new song that sounds. This is Margaret. Nothing can cool me down. How are you doing? I am excited. It's Wednesday. And so every Wednesday at 6 o'clock Pacific, we get here and we talk about our money. I call it a money date because I want this to be a fun and enjoyable show, as money tends to be overwhelming and frustrating and complicated. And so let's take all of that out and start from the beginning. I've got an exciting topic for you today. I want to talk about the 5 most important numbers you need to know about your finances. But before we dive in, there's a couple of things that we do. So if you guys are hopping on as we're getting started, I would like you to say hello, type something in the chat so I know you're here and you're watching, because I can't see. I think my internet is lagging a little bit, so I can't see who is here, but type hello and let me know how your week is going. Hi, yes, I can see your comment. Okay, cool. Hi, everyone. Okay, all right. So here's what we do on money dates. We first of all are going to dive into answering our 3 most important questions, right? And you guys remember, for those of you who are attending, the whole idea of having a money date is to actually check in with yourself and see what's going on with your overall money flow system. Okay, so the 3 questions that I like to keep track, and before I just hopped on doing this live stream, I actually know the answers for myself. So the questions are, number 1, how much money did you make in the last week? And since we meet every Wednesday, this is the tracking that you do Wednesday to Wednesday. Okay, so that's question number 1. Question number 2 is, hi Brooke, thanks. I can see your comment. Welcome, welcome. So question number 2 is, how much money did you save over the last week? I hope you have savings goals. If you hopping on today for the first time, this is going to be a starting point for you. Now, question number 3 is, how much money did you spend, right? Because if we don't know what we made and we don't know what we spend, how can we know where we stand? So at the very minimal, before we dive into anything more than that, those are the 3 things that I need you to start tracking, okay? If you aren't yet, and this is the first time, please, please, please go back and look at previous money dates and see how they stack up, okay? But I hope after today's session, once we reveal what are the most important numbers you need to keep track, then we can dive in deeper. Hi, Alexi. Thanks for joining. So, before I start with the overall topic, a couple of things I like to share with you. I always have a quote that I do love quotes. I talk about them all the time. So the quote for today is follows, and it's by Will Rogers. It says, too many people spend money that they haven't earned, and they buy things they don't necessarily want or need to impress people they don't even like. And so I thought about this for a while, and I know that I've done this at some point in my life before. I've spent money that I didn't need to spend, thinking that I can impress somebody with whatever it is, having a nicer outfit or a better looking car, or worse, a house that you couldn't afford. So the whole underlining idea about this quote, at least how I look at it, is you need to know where you stand. Okay, first, financially. And then you can start making decisions that are going to allow you to be in a better place. So get over the fact that you don't need to impress anybody, okay? The most important person that you need to impress is yourself. So let's dive in deeper. But what I'd like to share with you before, and I'm so excited because I just finished teaching my first Money Flow Bootcamp. I know you guys heard me talk about it. And this idea of Money Date actually came out of the Money Flow Bootcamp. Okay, so I have an online course, and I just finished teaching the 5-week live sessions about how do you put a system for yourself that will allow you to manage your basic financial needs on a more automated basis. And so Money Date is actually one of those things that you do in the overall money flow system. Okay, and so I'm so thrilled. I had a class of 8 students, right? Not bad for the first class. And so we were meeting weekly. Hi, Wanda, thanks for joining. And we just finished, and so I have 8 students who actually are implementing a system that I've been excited about for last 2 years. So I will let you guys know when my next class is starting, but because you've been getting a little bit of a taste of what the system is like, and I've been teaching topics on these Money Dates, and you've been having Money Dates, because the questions that I'm asking you every week to keep track of is what we actually set up for all my students in the Money Flow system. So I am thrilled because now it's not just me who's been living the system and having my husband follow it, but it's 8 other people. So I know you're going to get excited. So look out for information when the next bootcamp coming out. I think I'm going to make it shorter just to make sure that it was 5 weeks, and I wanted to give more time and wanted to see how the whole thing was going to play out. But I think I can do it in less time to get you guys going. So let's dive in deep and see what are those 5 important numbers you need to know. As you guys are hopping on, I need you to say hello. I'd love for you to say hello and let me know how things are going. And don't forget to share your money wins, okay? Because it's not fair. You get to know how things are with me. Why don't I get to know what's happening with you, okay? So here we go. The 5 important numbers we need all to keep track of. Number 1, okay? We need to know what is our take-home pay, okay? And let me clarify what is take-home pay. So for those of you who are getting steady paychecks, right? So you get, whether you work on an hourly wage or you have a salary. So you get a paycheck, and then certain deductions are being taken out of your paycheck. It could be obviously taxes, that's number 1, right? We have to pay Uncle Sam first. But then you may have insurance, retirement savings, all kinds of things that can be taken out of your paycheck. And then whatever is left over is called take-home pay. So most of us understand what our top line number is, right? We know how much we're supposed to be making, but do you really pay attention what is your take-home pay? Because if you think about it, that's what's being deposited into your checking account, right? And that's the number that you actually live on. So it is a lot less because you've paid taxes, you've had certain deductions, maybe you paid for your health insurance, life insurance, saved in a retirement plan. And so whatever is left over is what is available for you to pay your bills. Now, if you go through the Money Flow course, then we're going to work on identifying what our expenses are, right? Fixed and variable expenses. But at the very minimal, I need you to know what your take-home pay is. Now, for example, for those of you who are like myself, or if you have not a steady paycheck that you get every month, then your income varies because you either have clients that you work with or it's project work. Take a look at your revenue or your income that's been deposited into your bank account over the last 6 months, right? And see what's the average, right? Because I need to, if you know the number that we're working with, right? So if it's, let's say use $5,000 as an example. And if that's what your take-home pay is every month, right? Or if it's $2,500 every 2 weeks, then it's $5,000 altogether. Then that's what you actually have to live on. So it's a little bit different working it backwards, not from the standpoint, okay, here's all my expenses, and then I need to make this much money. No, here's the income you have, and now you have to figure out how to live on that income, okay? So that was number 1. Number 2, and I talked about this earlier today in the Daily Juice Show, is, and the question, because I was reading something earlier, is why aren't people saving enough for retirement? We know all that we're going to get to that point. So why aren't we saving enough? And I don't know what the reason is. Everybody has their own. I think those are just excuses, maybe not being organized. But you need to know what that number is. You need to know how much you need to be saving. I'll give you some guidelines of what you can start at least, right, at the very minimal. But the excuses all over the place. It could be that you don't understand how to do it, you don't have enough money. One of those, when we talked about the take-home pay, one of those line item deductions that you can have is actually a retirement plan contributions, right? And so here's some guidelines. So for those of you who are in your 20s, at the very minimal, 10%. Every paycheck that you get, 10% should be going into that retirement savings plan, okay? When you're in your 30s, if you haven't really started doing anything, you need to be thinking more like 15%. And then for those of us, right, and I know that you're out there, who haven't done anything and you're already in your 40s or 50s, or you've done and it's not enough, you really need to be thinking about 20 to 25% of your income. And again, it's almost like working it backwards. When do you want to retire, right? What is that lifestyle going to look like? And then come back to present time and say, well, if I want to get to this point, how much do I need to save? So, but at the very minimal, everyone should be having at least 10% of their income, right? Not take-home pay, the top line, going into your retirement savings account. And you need to know what that number is, okay? Number 3, and we also talked about this a couple of sessions ago, you need to know what your debts are, okay? So not only knowing what the debts are, but what kind of interest rate are you paying on those debts? So for example, I'll give you a couple of examples to help you understand this better. So if you have a mortgage, you need to know what the balance is, right? It's really easy to look up all of these data points if you pull your investment account statements, if you pull mortgage statements, if you log into your bank account. So if you have, for example, if you have a mortgage, look at the balance and what kind of interest rate are you paying on that loan. If you have a car loan, look up the balance on that note and what kind of rate are you paying. Do you have credit cards? Do you have student loans? Do you have personal notes? What other debts are there? Make a list, right? At the very minimal, you need to make a list and know where everything is at. I think doing just that step is going to get you very far because you're going to see it all sort of outlined on one page. Now, what I always advocate, and I talked about this again a couple sessions ago, is a concept of good debt versus bad debt, okay? So good debt would be something that helps you improve your life, right? And you can argue with me that credit cards perhaps can help you improve your life at some point, but I would argue against it. So a good debt would be a mortgage, okay? Because it provides a home for you to live. It also allows you to deduct the interest that you're paying on that loan. Student loans are a category of good debt, but everything else, credit cards, auto loans, right, personal notes, all of that stuff does not fall into the category of good debt. It's bad debt. And so when you're focusing, right, not only understanding your numbers for the debt, but when you're focusing on what to pay first, we go for the bad debt first because most of the times it has higher interest rate, and so it's costing you more, okay? So that's number 3, knowing your debts and knowing what rates you're paying for those debts. Number 4 is understanding your credit score, okay? It's very prudent recommendation, and I cannot tell you enough about how it is important for you to pull your credit report every year. And I don't know if you knew that, but you actually are entitled to have a free credit report from all 3 credit agencies, okay? It's, I'm trying to remember, it's a TransUnion, and I can't remember all of the 3, but if you just open up your browser and you type free credit report, all of them will come up. So once a year, you need to pull the report. Now, knowing your FICO score which is something important for the lenders, right? So when you go to borrow and use your credit report to borrow money, whether it's for a car purchase, a student loan, or a mortgage, or a credit card, the FICO score is what's the lenders are looking at, right? And say, okay, are you a credit-worthy consumer, and can we trust you with paying us back? So that's an important number to know, and you get that as you pull the credit report. But what I'm talking about here is making sure when you get that list, right, or that report of all your debts outstanding or the ones that you paid off, is there anything on it that does not belong to you? So identity theft is huge these days. I just actually heard, and it's a sad story, but I just heard from my very first client that when I started in financial planning. Hi, Dwayne. Thanks for having on. Oh my goodness, at least this is the first time you're joining me live. So my very first client, she's an elderly lady. Hi. And it's sad because I was contacted by her children as she's in the position where she cannot any longer really take care of her finances. And so the kids are taking over, and so we kind of working out through setting up a system and how are they going to actually help her. In the course of this process, we couldn't understand why this lady, and she's I think 89, why she has so much credit card debt, right? She's supposed to have very minimal expenses. She had enough income. And so when we pulled her credit report, guess what? There are so many accounts that were opened in her name over the last 2 years that it's unreal. So we having a meeting this Friday just to start going over that and trying to figure out how can we stop something like that. And the first thing we did is actually just froze her credit report. You can actually do that. It costs some money, but it's worth a while. So for those of you who haven't experienced any identity theft, at least at the very minimal, okay, go and pull your credit report, okay? So, yes, thanks, Wayne. I like that. Okay, that's number 4. Now, number 5, and I've got my notes here, and I know you hate me for this, but I'm not going to stop talking about it. You need to know and you need to have a savings account that's allocated for emergencies, okay? It's like a must because your whole operation, your whole system, your whole financial plan, whatever you want to call it, is not going to work. And I'll give you an example. This has just happened. Yes, I like that you do check yours on a regular basis. That's for sure. So last week, right, before I went to a wonderful, wonderful place, which is Maui, and I got to spend there a couple of days, I had, over the weekend, I started to feel like I had a toothache, and I couldn't figure out why because, I just finished my dental work and everything was fine. So over the weekend, by the time Monday came around, I thought I was going to die, okay? So I go to the dental office and try to figure out what's going on. So long story short, I had to get a root canal done. And when I left that office, I did not care what it was going to cost me. I have dental insurance, but it doesn't cover much. So I ended up spending $1,000 out of pocket, okay? Now, had I not had my Curveball account, right? And Curveball account is an emergency savings account in case something happens. And so I have not had an emergency in a long time, but I've always been prudent, and Yuri and I always were on the same page as far as we need to have this money in case something comes up. So, it was not like that expense throughout my whole operations of my system, but it definitely was painful to spend that money for something that was silly, but I had no choice. So the last number that you need to know is that how much money do you have in that emergency savings account, right? It's hard to keep track of your checking account balances because it goes up and down, right? Money comes in and you pay your bills and so forth. So it's almost like it's irrelevant. But the goal with the Curveball account is 3 to 6 months of your basic living expenses, okay? Now, I know that, and there's lots of statistics out there, and I even see this with clients, we can't, majority of people cannot get to even a 3-month worth of living expenses. So if you can do that, then you're going to get a lot of gold stars from me, right? And I need you to keep that number handy. So for example, if your monthly expenses are $5,000, then your target should be 15. So every time you log in to check the balance in that account, your eyeballs should be on it, and you need to know that it's 15,000. So for example, mine went down by 1,000, right? Because I had an expense. So now I need to figure out in the next month or so, how do I replenish back that $1,000, right? Because I spent it. So, and it was a legitimate expense. It's not the money to go shopping, and it's not the money to go on vacation. That's something else, and we can talk about that. So those are the suggestions and ideas I have for you. So 5 numbers, right? And just like we get together once a week and talk about the basic spending, savings goals, these are the things that you need to pay attention, okay? Because if you don't, I've given you enough examples what happens to your overall system, right? And if you have a significant other who is involved with you, it becomes even more complicated, right? Because then you have 2 people who are tapping 2 accounts, have credit cards, have expenses. And so I highly, highly advocate for that. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. I love coming on here every Wednesday. I hope you liking my daily juices. I try to come up with a shorter topic that I can share with you every day, so that something new, right? Or maybe it's just a reminder. Hi, Carrie. Aren't you guys supposed to be on a training call? I know I'm missing that. So, but I'm glad you can join me. I thought there was a training call tonight. Maybe I got the dates off. So thanks so much again. Please, please, please know your numbers, because knowing is what's going to give you that power and that control, okay? Because that's where chaos comes from. That's when the worry comes from, when you don't know, right? And you try to manage it, and you try to make decisions at the last minute. And so that's all I've got for you today. Can I play you a little bit of my song? Dwayne, I think you're going to like this one. Hang on. It's just going to be less than 30 seconds. Here's my song, okay? I'll see you guys next week. Thanks so much for joining.
Ready, aim and fire, got nothing can cool me down. Why no Venus hot like the sun? Whoa, nothing can cool me down. Got my stilettos.
We need to have a dance party one of these days.
See the shadows dancing on me. Oh, nothing can cool me down. And before the night is over, I'm a little smoking like crazy out. I'm your goddess, I'm your knees.
Hi, Shannon. Thanks so much for joining. Oh my gosh, guys, shouldn't you be on training? Hi, I'm done, so you need to watch this in replay. This is Margaret, okay? I think you like it. Just find it on your, I have Spotify, so I'll see you guys next week. Take care. Nothing can cool me down, down, down.